From the beginning of time, humans have always looked towards the sky for inspiration and guidance. There has been a fascination with birds, stars, gods, goddesses, and other entities which seem to exist above us, and for many humans, a strong yearning to travel into space. Man has dreamt of flight since observing space, and now it is time to become the space traveller. The future of space travel requires us to understand from where we came, to see where we are going.
Several thousand years ago, philosophers Mozi and Lu Ban from China were looking to the wind for flight. They invented kites using silk and bamboo, allowing for the later development of communication, measuring distances, testing the wind, and lifting men.
The invention of the kite brought with it the desire to fly. The first known attempts at flight were typically by leaping off towers, known as tower jumping. People in China, India, and Europe first attempted flight this way.
In 1670, Francesco Lana de Tarzi published a book that showed some interesting concepts. The concept of copper foil in a sphere with a vacuum would produce a vacuum airship. This is still not possible with today's materials. Francesco is recognized as the father of aeronautics, melding science and mathematics into aerial navigation.
The Chinese are believed to have developed the first hot air device. The Chinese lantern using hot air from a candle can take flight and was first used for signalling. The hot air balloon achieved the first human lift and advanced to what we know of as the Zeppelin.
The first attempts at flight in a heavier-than-air flying machine were made by more than just the Wright brothers. Most attempts failed, however, they were the stepping stones for what was to come later. The oldest airport, College Park, is still in operation today.
Airplanes evolved rapidly through the century, from propeller to helicopter to jet aircraft, and most of that technology is used today.
During the Second World War, Germany developed rockets that could go a limited distance. The basic rocket technology used then is still used today. The space race started with the Soviet Union and the USA in 1957 and led to many developments for the next step, the moon.
The spacecraft assigned as Apollo 11 was the first spacecraft to have landed on the moon. The space shuttle operated at tremendous cost. Burning the fuel proved to be wasteful and dangerous technology. The International Space Station, ISS, is a habitable artificial satellite that was assembled in low Earth orbit in 1998 with the use of the space shuttle. The ISS can often be seen with the naked eye from Earth.
SpaceX, as a private aerospace producer and space transportation services company, was founded in 2002 by Elon Musk with the goal of reducing space transportation costs and enabling the colonization of Mars. SpaceX reuses the first stage of their primary rocket, Falcon 9, by vertical propulsive landings. Although, up to present time, it still uses the rocket fuel burning technology. Mehran Kesh has always said, the time for burning fuels is over, but did we need to start with that technology in the first place?
Ancient cultures have suggested the use of an alternative means of transportation. With reference to possible plasma technology,
you can go to New York from Brussels within 2 to 5 minutes. And most of this 5 minutes is actually landing and getting up.
Mehran Tavakkoli Kesh was born in Iran in 1958. As the son of an X-ray engineer, he was introduced to the world of radiation and nuclear science at a very young age. In 1981, he graduated from Queen Mary, the University of London, as a nuclear engineer specialized in reactor technology system control. At that time, he developed a number of theoretical ideas related to more simple nuclear concepts and their applications. In 2002, he decided to finish the full design of his ideas about nuclear technology. This included the creation and control of gravity and energy by the use of nuclear materials in a clean and safe hydrogen reactor. Mehran Keshe introduced the concept of double magnetic fields to explain the magnetic and gravitational field of Earth.
Unknown by the existing scientific community, he wrote a number of scientific papers in 2004 and sent them for peer review, such as the creation of black holes. When performing the peer review used his information in public, he decided to draw back his papers and to concentrate further on building prototypes.
Since the beginning of 2006, several prototypes of dynamic reactors have been built, some specifically designed to create hovering effects, similar to effects seen with magnetic levitation. Basic hovering effects have been achieved. 2007 brought the first flight test with radioactive material, in which the patents describe the process of the field interactions.
The main patent, Gravitational and Energy System, described the initial fundamental aspects of the plasma and uses. This was followed by the supplemental patent, Microplasma Reactors, where further uses and advancements were described. Mr. Keshe found himself in Iran in 2008 and was provided all the resources needed to create the first lift of a plasma reactor managed by the Iranian government. These special rotating gas reactors were used to control the plasma. To bring a deeper understanding, Mr. Keshe released the first book in 2009, The Universal Order of Creation of Matters, which contained many new concepts released to the public. This included the PMTIC plasma magnetic fields, initial fundamental plasma and plasma dilution technology used for space reactors. The plasma technology was further developed and it manifested in weight fluctuation in a controlled environment. 2010 introduced a new state of matter called GANS, an acronym for gas in nano-solid state. The GANS produces fields to be used in the operation of the spaceship. Advanced flight tests were performed in Iran with the guidance of Mr. Keshe and the newly designed systems.
Mr. Keshe tells us you can't bring all the doctors with you in space. Medical research advanced in 2010 and is still being explored daily all around the world. The Keshe Foundation has provided knowledge for dealing with many medical conditions in space.
A great example of plasma technology used for peaceful process is the capturing of the USA drone over Iran in December 2011. This drone was touted as one of the most advanced drones of its day, and was caught by Iran using plasma to disrupt the communications. Plasma absorbs fields, and the drone uses radio fields for piloting, a natural aspect of the plasma, a barrier of fields.
Book 2, The Structure of the Light, was released in 2011. This book brought forward the understanding of the structure of light as a cylindrical plasma where the light is in possession of all magnetic field strengths. Book 3, The Origin of the Universe, was published later in 2011. Mr. Keshe explained the further operation and interaction of different strengths of the same fields, which then leads to the creation of the universe. These 3 books bring forward a much deeper understanding of the plasma science that is applied worldwide by knowledge seekers and scientists in spaceship research and development.
There were 2 conferences to release the space technology to governments in 2012. The first international presentation in April, Keshe Foundation invited representatives of every country to the first presentation of the plasma technology. The second international presentation in September, Keshe Foundation invited the nations of the world through their ambassadors and their leaders to attend a gathering at the Keshe Foundation Center in Nenove, Belgium.
Space travel requires peace. The implementation of the plasma technology brings greater responsibility. In 2013, Mr. Keshe brought forward the World Peace Treaty. Signing of the Peace Treaty is a confirmation from yourself to your soul to act correctly in a peaceful manner.
In 2014, knowledge seekers came together from around the world to learn from Mr. Kesh, and many different experiments with reactors were performed, including improving the previously developed reactors to fit with the new knowledge, introduction of nano-coated reactors, multi-core GANS systems. The Spaceship Institute lab experiments were streamed live on the internet for all to see. SSI lab tests with reactors showed strong magnetic field pulses up to 129 Tesla and showed significant weight fluctuations. In December, an experiment was performed using reactors built by knowledge seekers from around the world. Italy, Germany, and Canada were involved in field communication tests. The tests showed that fields can interact with each other no matter the distance or time, resulting in instant communication.
In 2015, developments for space continued with different aspects of the plasma technology, such as in health, energy, and decontamination. In October of 2015, Mr. Kesh taught a popular week-long course called the Blueprint Teachings about how to build the MAGRAV power units. People from all over the world participated with building their own MAGRAV units and teaching others. With the demand of the Kesh Foundation products from all over the world, a new research center and manufacturing opened in Arizona, USA. Many developments of the technology happened in different parts of the world, and Kesh Foundation USA is no exception. John and the team started performing experiments using different sensing tools. These tools allowed the team to visualize the MAGRAV fields and to show others their interactions. With reactor formations showing positive results, partaking in the knowledge together is easier and more joyful than ever. The fun has just begun, says MT Kesh.
Mr. Kesh publicly teaches the space technology through the weekly Knowledge Seekers workshops. Plasma enthusiasts from around the world participate in gathering the knowledge and putting the puzzle together in the space race. All people, irrespective of race, nation or religion, are invited to participate in the exchange of knowledge, thus assisting humanity to live within the ethos of the universe. It is recognized that international cooperation and peace is a prerequisite for mankind to journey into deep space. Individuals and nations are invited to come together in the spirit of collaboration and unity to enable peaceful application and the use of plasma technology for space travel, food, agriculture, energy, transportation, health and more. We are excited to release the Kesh Foundation Spaceship Blueprint to humanity.
Welcome everyone to the 225th Knowledge Seekers Workshop for Thursday, May 24th, 2018. I'm your host, Rick Crammond, and once again, we'll be honored to have Mr. Mayran Kesh of the Kesh Foundation to direct today's workshop. And I believe he's ready to go with today's activities. Mr. Kesh, are you ready there?
Yes, good morning, good evening, as usual, whenever you listen to these Knowledge Seekers workshops. It is nice to be here after 225 Knowledge Seekers programs and many other bits here and there we done. But in total, there are thousands of hours of teaching which is produced by us. We got the singer in the background.
Yes, we've taken care of it. I think Armin's microphone got open there.
Yeah, it's as I said, 225 sessions of teaching, and we are progressing very beautifully towards the spaceship program. And what I see, I know where it's going to, and we can see it. As we said, the Chinese spaceship program will be in the hand of the Chinese government to release as they decide, as we develop and complete in the coming time, and it's getting built. It's totally new ways of doing things, and it's beautiful what the way is coming out of it. On the other hand, I was watching the development in Arizona, and John is heading now back in its track towards creating new dimensions, and it's be interesting to observe the next steps. He is reaching or approaching the what we call the shimmering and solidification, but then we have to watch how long it take him to fine-tune to that position. I've been guiding him to get to that point, and hopefully we will be around about the same time as the Chinese, hopefully, when we will achieve that, most probably simultaneously sometime in the next couple of months. There are a couple of videos which is released by John today, and it'll be nice to look at it, and then we can talk about it and then develop it, because our main target at this moment is to complete the spaceship program. John, are you there in the background? Or can you share?
I'm here.
Hi, John.
Hi.
Would you like to tell us your progress in the past week or so?
So one of the things that we believe is that there's kind of many different ways to achieve a similar or different results, all of them leading to different versions of space travel. So we've been testing a number of different types of configurations. Some of them may be a little bit more off the beaten path, but nonetheless, they all kind of bring us to an understanding. So I sent a couple videos to Vince there, if you want to go ahead and show them. This is the one of the ones that we have going in the front office area, or the foyer. And I believe it now, we've reconfigured it to where we've kind of gone back to our original understandings, but we've strengthened the fields both in the bottom and the top. So go ahead and play that one.
Sound is missing.
Strengthen the fields both in the bottom and the top. So go ahead and play that one. Here in Arizona, and we have this configuration of our spacecraft going again. We have very heavy gravitational fields on the bottom, and on the bottom reactors I put the GANs of the fingernails in my fingernail GANs, and on the top reactor is very heavy magnetical. The bottom is spinning anti-clockwise and the top is spinning clockwise. The fields that it's generating, again, we're back to where we have the heat. The heat is about, you can feel the field right about there. It's very warm, right about there, if you can see. And we've tilted these reactors in the bottom ever so slightly. We tilted them inwards. Right now all of them are sitting at a 4.5 degree angle to the inside. And we're trying that out to see if by tilting them a little bit, if we can't get the direction changed. Right now it seems to be working pretty good in that field. On the top, it's about the heat. The heat is like right there, maybe a foot off of it. So that's been running now for half a day, and we'll let it continue to run.
What temperature difference do you say, John, that is compared with surrounding?
It was noticeable. I'm going to say there's probably a 5-degree difference in the temperature once you move in that range. We got some measuring devices. We're going to quantify it better later on. Right now, we can only sense it with our fingers.
Okay, can we see the second video, please?
Yes, this is the second one.
Here in Arizona, this is our I'll call it our original spaceship configuration with the ceramic balls. Again, we have the heavy gravitational on the bottom and the heavy magnetic on the top. Same spinning. This one's spinning clockwise and the bottom is spinning anti-clockwise. And you can see we have the 3 sheets of metal, except we have the titanium plate underneath there, the copper plate there, and the aluminum plate up there. Again, the fields of the energy, you can feel them now. They're stronger than they were before, and they're very definite that you can feel them. About right there is about the is where you feel the heat, and on the top it's about right there. So it's pretty similar to the other one because they both have the similar mixtures. This one we have it on a scale, so we're watching the any change in the weight. We haven't noticed any change yet, but we're watching that also.
So now this one is our motorless version.
We're here in Arizona, and we have our motorless spacecraft, and we're hooked up to a plasma generator through the electrical lines. And what's strange is that the field almost has a pyramid type shape to it when we measure it with our beeper. And it kind of comes out like a pyramid. And then on the top you can see it's so we've ignited it and we're letting it go. We had a little problem where we had to switch some of the balls around, especially on the bottom, the hydrogen balls, the gravitational balls, because they were leaking. You can see where they leaked in the past. But other than that, it's running and we're monitoring it.
This is a different configuration that David in our group is working on.
Okay, we're here in Arizona, and David's going to show you what he's been up to. David, go ahead and explain what it is that you're doing.
I found these pots, flower pots from copper flower pots from Mexico,
and I thought it was a nice idea to enclose the fields of the experiments we're doing here. And as you see, I'm kind of making a similar to the spacecraft, how we see them. The top part has a reactor that is
Turn it around on the inside.
In the inside, you can see here, we have a reactor right there.
And you have this.
And we have a coil here,
coil
two coils. One coil that is loop around, and we have also some magnetite ring on top of the ring. That will be the magnetical part of the spacecraft.
Okay, when you say magnetite, what are you talking about?
Magnetite is black sand that has been.
Where did you put the black sand at?
Coated is in this ring.
So you put that inside that white ring.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's magnetite nano-coated. That is going to pick up the fields, the magnetic
So you
fields.
got GaNs and magnetite in there, both. Okay.
Yeah. And in the other one, it's going to have
so then
another
this is the other half.
It's going to have another coil in the bottom section. This coil also is going to have this ring is going to have a coil, a small coil in the center with gravitational GaNs. All these are going to be gravitational GaNs, and they're going to sit.
And you used the aluminum plate here.
That zinc. It's a zinc
plate
that we're going to put here.
And the plastic plate.
And
then
this
that's
is
going to go on the top.
That's how it's going to set, and we're going to put the battery.
So hold the whole thing up. So that's what it's going to look like.
And the fields are going to be enclosed completely. We're still in the process of nano-coating, but it's going to be part.
What are you going to nano-coat? What part are you going to nano-coat?
The inside. I want to nano-coat the inside.
Inside
part.
only?
Yeah, the inside part only.
Okay.
And from there, and then we're going to start loading with the different GaNs, similar to what we are doing in the other reactors.
Okay.
And we're going to activate. That's the first prototype. I had 2 more prototypes that I'm working, but this is going to be the first one that we're going to try.
Let's take a look at the other stuff. We'll stop this one.
All right, first.
Okay, we're here in Arizona, and David's going to explain his other project that he has going on.
This is the other prototype that I'm working with the zinc copper plates that I got from Mexico. You can see a reactor in the bottom part, and I have 3 more reactors inside and 1 at the top. I have 5 reactors here.
So it's 5 reactor setup.
Yeah.
And open it up so you see the inside.
We have the balls that we're going to be loading with the
ceramic balls. Okay.
Ceramic balls. They're going to be loaded with the GaNs. 2. We have a plate.
A zinc plate.
A zinc plate that we're going to put in this section before we close them. And we're hoping to put also one of the plastic.
Okay, and what's this setup? What is this deal over here?
This setup is going to be also a way to use in one of the other reactors, like this one. It's like enclosing.
Don't put it over there. Don't put it over there.
It's going to be a way to enclose the fields too.
Okay.
It's going to be nano-coated in the inside.
Okay. Where was your device for making materials? Is that going to be this device?
Yeah, this is for the because it has all the GaNs here.
So you're planning on putting what, food GaNs in there?
I'm planning to put all the food GaNs and all the it will be almost like a food creator, replicator.
Like, so it'll have all the different elements to pick from.
Yeah, it's going to be almost like the central feeding unit.
Okay.
Almost a replicator. That's an idea, that I'm working with. I'm going to start creating all the food GaNs and activating
and the material
all
GaNs
the
too?
inside of those reactors is going to be all for material creation, But at the same time, it can be, the aerial spacecraft that can create the food, you know. It's almost like a central part of the...
Okay, nice.
So
Okay.
it's just, you know, some idea to play with.
All right. Arizona. And
So those are some of the things that we're working on right now.
John, if you go back to the second video where you have the cores and when you can feel the heat, where you
spaceship
stronger heat from
configuration.
before. How much stronger is it compared to last week? Yeah, this configuration.
So last time we could feel energy, but now we feel a significant amount of heat with this new version. It's now much more like heat versus just energy.
So you have brought it one step down. So in a way, if you can step it another step down, you should be able to see the lights. And you should be seeing what we call the shimmering lights. This morning I asked you how you achieve this. The heat is on the equator. Is strong apparently on the equator, which explains it. That's where these balls contain ganses from original time when they were filled up. Gans water, some of it. So at that point, the fields coming from the top breaks down and goes towards the base. So there is a conflict of the fields which are coming from down up as well. And the heat, which fields are presumed stronger on the equator line, is due to the interaction of the two fields from the top and the bottom, which they come together. This is what we see on planetary system. On the equator, there is always warmer. This is not that the equator is closer to the sun, as has been presumed before. It's from the interaction of the two fields which run the system directly inside internally, but the sun has, because of its diameter, has some influence on it. But now with this system, as John can tell you, the most of the heat sits on around the green belt area, if I'm correct. Am I right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So this is the interaction of the two fields coming from the bottom and from the top, and with the field of the balls bending towards each other, is pulling them. So now the next step for John is to convert the fields into action. What is got to be achieved, if what the next step will be, is that the fields from here have to come. Let me take it that you can see it. The fields from here have to come down, and the field which is closest to it will come this way second. Then the dynamic field between these, as it gets pulled up in the rotational vortex, if you look at it, creates the third field, which at that point we start seeing tangibility. We start seeing shimmers. So we have the field interaction between all three, which now starts changing gradually from heat as the power is increased. You got to remember this system has one efficiency, which is this central column. Now, if John changes the bases of this reactors again to an angle towards the center, they've done 4.5 degrees, usually is between 11.2 to 19.8, something in that region. It gives the best value conversion of the lights. Something about 11 degrees to 19.2 degrees, 19.7 degrees. We see the total conversion in sound system depending on the loading. So what you have in an angle with your reactors. If you bend it a bit more forward, you'll find that the concentration goes up, if it's correct, depending on loading. And that's why here, originally we always said in all the operation to keep this center path open. It is hollow center this, am I correct?
We have a bearing in there to spin the motors, but other than that, it's open.
On the top?
Right where the copper plate is a bearing to hold the ball to be able to spin.
Yeah. If you keep this passage open, you'll find out you start getting more effect. There is a small correction which Aranda has already done. If you look, there is a power unit here. This power unit, when it's moved down, allows more energies to be balanced out. Because in this path of fields, there should be nothing. So now that we changed winds to heat, now is the now we have to adjust. I've explained to John how to adjust the motors, the 3 cores and all the cores to start achieving to see the shimmer. So Arizona is on the way to the right path, as I said last week. If they stop playing, they start moving the right way. Now the what do you call it? They are in that direction. There are certain things which we have advised them to carry out. If they do, then you see other results. The problem with these sets is it will not show sudden move. It's on the wrong grid. You have to change your base to a solid base. You set it on a grid, as I noticed it. Because it starts vibrating. When it starts shaking and vibrating, it can fall off. You have to secure the system. And you have to put a plate that it doesn't fall through the holes if it has got a possibility to go through. And by moving that battery unit to feed the motor to a lower level next to the other blue one, we increase the possibility of the work. So we are in the right direction. What they're going to do next week, hopefully, when we see, they will show us the heat difference. We can actually see, observe heat variation. There is one thing which we always have to notice and is important, and this is what we always said in the agricultural side: the fields does not end here. These fields expand beyond the solar system because they are plasmatic. It also has to decide, and it's spherical. So it has a lot of application, and by strengthening the central column fields, we can dictate the boundary of the craft from now on. Because when this spreads out and doesn't break here, if it spreads out, breaks here, it gives you a meter. You can create a total sphere out of this system that they become the center, and then you create a craft on the boundary. This has been done. Single reactor solidification has been achieved before, but it's very hard to maintain. It's vulnerable to environmental field strength, especially in the free zone space, magnetic field. But this is what we see. This is what is just about to come up, and it's beautiful to see Arizona back on track, and slowly everything is coming together. If they keep on this track, they will see what you call, they start seeing the variation in the fields, and if it's kept on track, maybe they're about 4 to 6 weeks away from solidification. If they keep everything, do not get diverted. And there are a couple of fuels which needs to be considered. It's not here. And there's a couple of positions which has to be considered, which is not here. And these are what I call the golden key to the Rolls Royce, which is in the pocket. There is something in your talks you continuously repeat. It's good to explain to our knowledge seekers, if you can enlighten us, John. You carry on explaining that you have heavily magnetically and heavily gravitationally rotate the cores. Can you explain what you mean by heavily gravitational and heavily magnetical, please?
Okay, so with the heavy gravitational fields, what we've done is we've loaded hydrogen GANs on the outside, which by mass ratio is substantially more than the tritium, which we put on the inside, or the number 2 ball with an empty center ball. So what we're doing is we're pulling the fields in, if you will. And we've also paid a lot of attention to the pH of the material that we're using. So we've the pH scale on the tritium that we're using is at 1.7, and the hydrogen that we're using is up at 13.1. So we have a very strong gravitational pull on the bottom cores. All 3 of them are similar in that effect. On the top core, it's much more magnetical in nature. And what we've done is we've taken the tritium and we put it on the outside core, and we've used by mass ratio substantially more tritium, like 128 to 1, in comparison to a very small amount of hydrogen that we put in the number 2 ball. Again, both our hydrogen and tritium have the pH difference such that there's a substantial gradient. So the fields on the top are radiating out, and the fields on the bottom are pulling inward.
Can I ask a question? Can you explain more? The way you achieved high pH.
Yes.
Can you explain how you achieved high pH?
Okay, so what we did with the tritium is we mixed some dry tritium with small amount of water, and first we started the dry tritium that we're using is, I'll call it a 1-wash tritium, so it's I'll call it stronger in nature. And then we add a little bit of water, and then we put it in a reactor, and we add some citric acid, and we measure the field, the amount of pH, and we push it down to about 1.7, I think, is what we had. And then we put it in a reactor and we put it out in the sun. And it's our thinking that when we put it out in the sun, because they're magnetical fields, that what we're doing is we're pulling the energy fields from the sun into the tritium. So it's like an energized from the sun. In Arizona, our sun is very strong. So when we put it out in the sun for an hour, it seems like the consistency of the material changes to where it's, rather than being orange in color, it's yellow and yellow-black in color for the most part. The amount of citric acid that we have in there is not overwhelming. It only takes maybe a spoonful per reactor, or maybe less. And then with the hydrogen, what we do is we use potassium hydroxide to move the hydrogen GANs up. And again, what we're doing is we're taking dried hydrogen GANs, adding a little bit of water, and adding a little bit of potassium hydroxide until we reach a level of about into the 13s. We're at about 13.1. I'm not saying that that's the best way. We've also been testing other ways to move the pH of the material up substantially and down substantially. And when that other way comes, maybe our material will be even better. But for right now, it seems to have that gradient difference that's allowing the fields to be strong again. When we had the small gradient difference of approximately 7 for the tritium, which is what our normal tritium runs, and then about 9.2 for the hydrogen. There wasn't the strength of the two fields didn't appear to I'll say move the meter as much.
Yeah, if you remember about a few months ago when we were talking, I explained to you when you achieve 14 to 2 or 14 or 1.5 to 2, you will start reaching the point where you can create fields for, what do you call it, for lift. So you managed to achieve around about 13.1 and 1.7, which you more or less 6 or 7 times. Is there another point which you have to now consider to increase this power? Is to increase the ratio. I discussed this before. You have to increase this ratio outside to inside to run about 1,200 to 1. You'll take your time to achieve it. The gradient plus the, what you call the pH, will give you a stronger field for interaction and creation of the shimmer and solidification. So if you build it up, you're going to 128 to go to 256, and then the same ratio up. Around about 1,000 to 2,500 ratio is very much like 2,500 RPM. And so you should be able to start seeing a stronger field with the same. If you can still push the pH up or down, it will give you a more factor of order of magnitude. So you start seeing higher and stronger fields. There are a couple of things still missing in this structure. So when, what do you call it, you come to it, then you will see you need the rotation of the balls inside, because most of your tests at the moment are non-rotational balls. And these balls, when they rotate, see if they increase the bending and the temperature. Use a mercury thermometer, not the beam thermometer, and then you will see the temperature difference. And then you can go to the next step, and you're not very far, but the next step for you to increase the pressure is changing the density. Now becomes order of magnitude, or pH, and order of load, the load ratio. What is your load ratio at the bottom? Is it still 128 to 1?
No, on the bottom we have 48 to 2 or 24 to 1.
You got to increase that too. That the fields can go upwards or stronger.
Okay.
And we discussed this morning how to test for the fields, and then you should be on your track. Anything else you would like to share with us?
No, that's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you to your team. It's fantastic. When I saw that brass dome, it reminded me of we made that with a plant pot in nearly in Desenzano. It's somewhere the plant pot. So this is on the same kind of track, but it's totally different. But it's fantastic to see new ideas and new ways. Thank you very much to you and your team. Is there anybody who wants to ask any question from John? No questions. Is Rick still with us?
I'm here, Mr. Kesh, yes.
Are you still beeping, or is it?
No, the beeping stopped now, and the power came back on at pretty much the exact moment when the video started playing for the workshop, at the beginning of the workshop. So that was interesting.
So the life support machine kicked in.
Yes, I guess that's what keeps me going, is the workshops.
Any questions from anyone?
There's a person with their hand up, but they had their hand up from before, so I'm not sure. I don't think it was in regards to this. Anybody else? If you're an attendee, there's 65 attendees here in the Zoom. And if you wish to ask a question, you can put your hand up and I can allow you to talk. I don't see any questions on the live stream. Anything on YouTube or Facebook, guys?
No questions. I have a question, Rick.
Yes.
Familiar voice.
Yes, this is Gatua. I have a question. The question is about the rotating balls. I think they are ceramic balls. And I was wondering what the number of those balls are and why we don't have the inside and outside ones. I believe we learned that you have 12 on the outside and 6 on the inside. So I expected to see 2 rows, 2 circles of balls with 6 inside and 12 outside. So why is that not the case?
Yeah,
what did I mean?
We do have, you can't see them, but there's actually 6 on the inside. Behind that row of balls, there's another row of balls inside. And there's 18 on the outside.
Okay, thank you very much.
Dr. Katwa, can you read your Zoom, please? There are some messages there for you.
Okay, I'll do that, Mr. Kesh. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other question?
We have Dan had his hand up. I think I'll allow him to talk. Hello, Dan, did you want to speak? Your hand was up briefly there.
Yes, thank you. I want to know in this ball in the equator line, what about give up of GANs and use only field center of like in previous workshop when Mr. Kesh say work with only with field, not the GANs. Which means making one reactor, put inside the holy balls, obtain this field in the middle, and use this ping pong ball full of gun or stand of guns of field.
You know, eventually we'll get there, but this, what you have to do is you have to create those fields in the center ball of your reactor. And once you do that, and once you create the strong field plasma, then you can create more or other ping pong balls by putting them into this field plasma, if you will. But you have to create the strong field plasma first. In other words, light up the fields. In other words, you have to create that energy light, if you will, the plasma light.
Let me explain something. Let me explain something that it might enlighten something. What actually should happen between all the three base reactors, all the three base reactors somewhere here, and this reactor up here, there should be a free zone plasma, which is, with the placing of the sixth reactor, gets pulled roughly into the equator line. The planetary system, when it comes into operation, or in any position to any satellites or whatever, moon or whatever, is the interaction with this free plasma. So you have to remember this all the time. This goes back to the teaching of since 2014, and all the teachings we repeat. And you can't take your balls off this. And this is the free plasma, total free plasma of the whole structure. And in part is one of the reasons that you feel heat here. So even though we have these dynamic cores with materials in it, the real free plasma is the yellow ball somewhere there. This is where, with this configuration, we have created a dynamic double plasma. And it's a double plasma core, it's not a single core, because of the interactions of what? In fact, in totality, is nearly 5 cores interlayered, and in some cases 4 to 6 cores interlayered on top of each other. So this has to be kept in mind. Don't get distracted by the balls and rotating balls and where the free plasma is going to be. This all are reactions. In a way, is the soul of the body. It's the soul of the system. All this physicality does. If you look at it, there is something important. If you go back to part of the teaching, you have this, you see it, that's why they feel heat. Gradually, we will see the first shimmers. If you look, the same we have with the structure of the planetary system. The center core of the Earth, that's the soul of the Earth. And now you have the surface of the Earth, which is the physicality of the Earth. In fact, if you look, it's the same. We have the same structure, the soul of the man and the face of the man. But because of the gravitational pull of the body, as we said, you have the physicality of the man. And this is the same if you look at the repetition of it. So once we create a balanced soul and we can hold it here, we will see the manifestation of the physicality of the body in respect to plasmatic environment of the universe, not the Earth. This has to stay in mind. We have to remember this. Because we have created a plasmatic environment in these cores, this plasma core here is the gravitational magnetic field plasma of the universe, not there. That's why it can manifest itself and hold itself on planetary system or anywhere else. There is a part of the what we call atomic structure teaching that is again unknown to the world of physics, and in so many ways, if we I try to go back and come back on this one, is very simple. I try to do it on the screen, you understand. This has never been discussed by nuclear physicists, atomic physicists, but it's what it is. If you look, we have in the nuclear structure, I better choose another color. In the nuclear structure, we have a proton and we have an electron. Rotation of the electron confirms the existence of the atom. Look at it. You have the center of the earth and physicality of the earth, where you have all the oceans and all the hills and mountains. If you look at it, it's exactly the same. The skin of the planet is the electron of the planet, but in a way it has solidified itself to it. It's dynamic. And if you look as a nuclear physicist or as an atomic physicist, and you look at the structure, and we follow more or less the path of the electron around the proton, we see the same kind of structure around the solid state of the matter of the earth around the center. It's exact similarities. So what we will see in a coming time, we can confirm and in a way explain that the skin of the planet is the electron of the planet. The boundary of the skin, because if what we call inertia stays the same, the inertia, the magnetic field layer of the earth, which we call it the solid core, is actually the energetic balance between the higher and lower energy of the electron boundary. As we know, electrons move within a shell. Here is free, here it has solidified itself, but the field still rotates within it through the heartbeat of the center. What this tells us is that some of the things which John will notice soon will be this shimmering. And then by adjusting, which I'll explain to John how to do it, he has to refine it to a full shape. And that center ball is the soul of it. This goes back to all the teachings, go back in past 5 years. It's all in there. Now it becomes together. Now you understand why. With placing these 18 balls outside and 6 balls inside, we have given it conformity. Because now, as you have the fields of here, now you have a small fields of these cores, which continuously confirms the solidification, confirmation of holding the fields. In a way, if you look at it, it's like a breast of the chicken. All the bones which come in are chest of the man. That's the reason for these balls. That does not matter what we support. But it's the same with underneath. Now is this one, I change the color you understand more. Now is this one with this core, but it's this one with this core too. And it's this one with this core. But when you start creating rotation in this disk, these solid beams become solid matter. It gives you the solid structure of the physicality. That's why I said to John this morning, we were talking, get your balls moving, because you need it since the motor heats up. What you got to do, change the position of the motor in a way that it doesn't need to heat up. You got to bring it inside. The motor is outside. Find a way to bring your motor inside. So now you see how the structure should start building up. You kept the ratio of 124 or 128 up, 48 down. These balls have to have a ratio between the two. As it's stronger, it feeds the weaker. As it's stronger, it feeds the weaker, so you create a silver lining. Arizona is online for flight, and we explain it directly. Arizona is ready to create the structure, but if they go and play like past a month or two, then we have to wait till they come out of the nursery, stop playing. But if they, now you see how the space shoe is taking place. It's a very direct, you understand the relationship between the structure of the electron and the proton. You understand the structure of the physicality of the Earth. Now we understand the physical body of the planet is actually the electron of it in respect to its environment. In the other point, this is free. Now we're going to have the same thing with our course, with our flying systems. This is where the world of what you call it, atomic, has lost its track with the geology. Where in fact it's exactly the same thing. Where here the mass of electron creates its own inertial boundary, maximum, minimum, where in a planetary system, the shell of the body, then you have a magma here. The magma and this gap here are exactly the same thing. And then you have the soul. You have the same thing. If you look, the soul of the man, then you have the face of the man, then what do you have in between? You have the magma. We call it the brain of the man. There's no difference. And we are on the same track. We're on the right track to complete the position. And I congratulate John and his team. They're back on track. And if they stay on track, no play around. Okay, they went and tested something. They came up with a new fuel combination. But there's another way to create a higher, what do you call, alkalineness, which is a gravitational field, and acidity, which is the giving. Then it explains a lot of things. This I was explaining to our knowledge seekers past week or so, a lot of these things to fill in the gaps, understanding of the gaps. And then if you understand this, you can create a condition continuously that you receive fields from the environment. You never lose. If you look at the descending and ascending of a system as gaining or giving energy, then you can see you don't need to look at the gravitational magnetic. It's how you force polarity through your system and how you move the center core in its strength. Is there anything else you want to explain, John? Or any other question?
No, I don't have anything else to add, other than we added a little bit of deuterium in all of our hydrogen in our tritium, and what we also found was when we put our deuterium out in the sun, it was our thinking that we were able to again strengthen it as we saw a gray layer or a gray film appear on the top of the deuterium, which we felt was a stronger, more resonant use for the rather than just the plain powder. So, or whatever that's worth.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
There's a couple of questions. Hassan asks, John talked about fingernails. Why is there a GANs of your fingernails there? Thank you.
So one of the things that we're attempting to do is to connect our energy fields with the system. We wanted to kind of stay away from the blood at this point, and we know that the fingernails also contain a DNA. So what I did is I made the GANs of the fingernail, and I put a little drop in the bottom reactors. And my thinking was that with my soul, I'll be able to, let's say, interact with the reactors in a more positive and meaningful way, including even at my home now, that I should have that connection field to the reactors themselves. And it's kind of, in my thinking, moving us closer to the controls with our thoughts.
Anything else?
Okay, well, we have Lawrence has his hand up, and he's got a question about the balls, I believe. Lawrence, can you go ahead?
Yes, good morning. Hello.
Hi.
My question was whether we can use the central tube within the star formation to create scaffolding using the free plasma. If we put a simple empty ball in the system where we have drawn the free plasma, we would be capturing that simple free plasma. But if we put, say, 2 or 3 balls stack up onto each other, like if we had swallowed something and the tube is in ourselves or the chakra system of our bodies, then we would be having free plasmas up in the center and below each other in similar strengths, but in slightly different strengths. And use this free plasma for scaffolding for the next level of star formation. That is the question.
John, you want to answer it?
My thinking is that once you create a spaceship, that everything that goes into that spaceship will carry the energy fields of that spaceship. So you can take as much scaffolding as you want inside the spaceship once you create it, and come out of the spaceship with, I'll say, as much scaffolding as you want. That's my thinking.
The point I wanted to make is that with the motor system and the ganses, we are somehow still tied to the matter level. And if we capture the free plasma and use the free plasma, then we do not even have to put our own ganses inside, because we are already at the level of souls and we can interact with our emotions. This is the teaching we've been, or something like this has been the teaching that we've been listening and learning about in the last few weeks. And when I saw this drawing with the tubes, I just had an intuition, and I wanted to share and ask Mr. Kesh this question, or you the question, whether it's the same thing as we have now, just in the direction of the spaceship without motors. So basically the next level of scaffolding using only the free plasma.
The position of reactors without motors and without actually balls is the future development, because you got to understand, in the universe we have no motors. Man has advantage, this discovered and built it over centuries. Is one of the beauties of knowledge gained from this planet in the universe is unique. And in that process, we have used it to create. But in the future development, maybe next 5 years, 2 years, depending now that the what we call governments are involved with the Keshe Foundation development of the spaceships, we will reach non-motor, non-containment reactors, where the field of the creation of the dimension will enforce the creation of the reactors in position of the rotation. This is the future development, but we are getting there. This is why last week in my talks, I, in a way, gave a hint to John, go back, you are going the right way, and now we've seen it immediately, the result has changed to heat, in a way heat shows, but now they have to determine the position of their field interaction, not some changes needed to compress this into physicality, and we will see, we're on the line to see the first structural made the same as the body of the man without matter state. And John has a clear guidelines I explained to him this morning to reach that. It's fine-tuning. Now it's just a matter of fine-tuning. And then if we fine-tune good enough, then we can get rid of the motors and the cores.
What would happen if we took an empty ball, put it in the center of the star formation, filled it with the free plasma?
You see, that center ball moves. That center ball which you want to put in there to contain it. First of all, why do you want to contain it? Secondly, it vibrates.
To put it on top.
In some cases, you will see in the future, it moves according to expansion of the core. Sometimes it moves slightly due to the pressures from magnetic field. It's a barometer to hold the structure. You can't confine it, and that's imaginary confinement. In a way, if you look underneath what you call UFO, you see 3 lights, which is the base light, and one in the center. That center is not the top reactor, it's the, what do you call it, plasma field reactor in the middle. That's what you see. You don't see the top reactor. You never see the top reactor in a way when you look from down. And most of the plasma reactors, you cannot see through them. Some spaceships, you can see the light through the base.
You had a drawing sometime when you
Pardon?
moved. You had a drawing sometime when you moved the free plasma to the height of the top reactor, with another reactor that was placed on top of the force reactor, the magnetic reactor.
Those kind of things, you have to understand what you're doing.
Okay, so we're not.
You cannot push it. It's very. You cannot push it unless you make certain things, parameter changes in all the system. You collapse the structure of physicality.
Yes, I understand.
Thank you very much. Any other question? What is interesting for us is to understand more in the physical dimensions and understanding of totality of everything, and in so many ways working in the direction of creating plasma fields which we can measure, which we can deliver, which we can understand the work of the plasma. The totality of plasma physics is not the dimension of physicality. We have to move on outside this dimension. We have to move on in the direction that we understand more about the work of the plasma and not the matter state of the plasma. And this will be important for all of us now that we are achieving what we've seen in today's teaching with John, the next phase of interaction. What is important is that many works done many conformation of the field interaction done, now moves away from matter state into the plasma state and the field motion. So it'll be good for all of us to move in the direction of now going into plasma motion, understanding the motion of the fields, understanding the interaction of the fields. We need this from now on, that what will happen in the universal dimension, the stars, planetary systems, all of the galaxies put together, total mass is maybe less than 3 to 5% of the visible materialized in the strength of the body of the man. Point of observation, physicality. If we decide to live with a 5% to go from star to star, what are we going to do with other 95, 98% of the universe? The beauty sits in those than actually in physicality of landing somewhere. To be able to work within the dimension of the 97% or 95% of the universe, we need to understand the work of the plasma on a field level, not on a matter level. Because in so many ways, it's very much the stars. And when we develop more in the science of the universe, the field parameters of the galaxies are little islands in the ocean of the universe. The star is an ocean, it's an island in this ocean. Planet Earth is a dot in this ocean. Would you like to be stranded on a desert island in the universe? When man loses its attachment to conformation of physicality, we find there is more in the world of the universe. Free plasmas, interaction of the plasmas. In a simple way, John has showed us today, he could feel wind. And I said weeks ago, follow the wind. Now he feels heat. Now, in time comes, we'll see the shimmers, the light, we'll see the physicality. But these are all made of the interaction of the field. And if we expand the knowledge, we'll see the interaction of fields. You see the work of the universe. You see that new dimensions can be given. New understanding is needed. So, would you like to live in a deserted island with no ships around and watch and wait and see somebody comes? That's what we've done as human race on this planet. Would you like to get stranded walking from one island to another? Make a colony and make a new generation, and people will forget how you arrived there because you forgot the technology of the space technology, and then they have to go through the evolution of thousands and millions of years that they might find that path if they survive the interaction of the fields of the universe, and then they might take into space. And then the whole cycle starts. Or you want to be again as part of the what I call the sails of the universe on the ships of the space of the universe. It's called spaceship, means finds the spaces. It's a ship which works within the spaces of the universe, not on the lands of the universe. This is a space we have, the whole 97% of the universe. Then we have to understand, now that we become the sailors of the universe in the spaceship, the same as the earth, the direction of the current flows of the seas, the rivers inside, the interaction of the salt water and the sweet water, the interaction of the hot and cold. It's the same in the universe. There's no difference. But this time you have a stronger fields than the weaker fields. You have fields, the rivers which move against each other. You have dams and reservoirs that the fields just gather and do nothing. And you can sit there. It's like sailing on an ocean. You'll find the turbulences in the interaction of the fields due to rapid expansion of one galaxy or collapse of another. How do you stand the storms of a hurricane in the high seas? Now, the whole thing is, you have to be able to make a ship in a higher level. You have to be able to make a ship that it can stand all the turbulences of the universe. So it means you can't attach yourself to physicality. You have to be able to understand how to sail this matter, physical structure which you created out of the field of the universe. You call it the spaceship, to be able to sail the winds of the universe. Now you see, nothing has changed. The problem has got bigger. Man was happy to move from the leg into the back of a donkey. He was carrying it, and then he was happy to find an engine and find a car. He was happy to find a jet, and then now he's happy to find a spaceship. But you're back on the same track. You become a sailor in the wind of the universe, in the oceans of the fields of the universe. The only difference with this is that now you're all submerged inside the universe. We are submariners of the universe. Because this universe, as I explained, with the fields and the face of the earth and the face of the man, has a central plasma as a face. Who lives above it? Who lives on the surface of this universe? How would we become when we find our way to the surface of this universe? Remember one principle in the world of creation. What is in macro is in micro, and vice versa. Now you understand, when you speak about those who live within the planet Earth, we are ourselves within the structure of the universe. We haven't seen the surface of this universe yet. No one has ever spoken about this up to this point. But as a messengers or universal messengers, we have to open your eyes to it. Because sooner or later, some of you will break through and you come to a dimension which you have never thought existed. But it's the reality. That's why I brought the dimension of the surface of the atom, surface of the earth, and the surface of the solar system and your reactors. We are submariners of this universe. We have never been taught, we have never been guided. How do we interact when we enter to the surface of this universe? If it takes you 40 hours or 24 hours to go around the surface of this planet, can you imagine the time it would take you to go around the belt of this universe? Not as the fish, but as the man of the universe. This is the reality that some of you who take into space will come to face to, because in reality, you get caught in the volcanic eruptions of this planet, this universe, and you'll pop out. Or through the dimension of interaction, traveling to another universe, by mistake, you'll come to a dimension, a new dimension. It has the same structures, this universe, that's the same structures, this planet. Valleys, mountains, oceans of its own matter. And now that we have brought you to this point, man has to understand the travelers of the universe does not finish within this universe. We are in the shell, we are in the structure of a universe which has a service, as has the Earth. When we spoke about the black hole in the center, which is the soul of this universe, it's the same as the soul of the man. You have the brain of the man and the transition of the points from A to B, and then you have the face of the man. You have the face of the planet. Now man has to accept that this universe has a face of its own in the dimension of the body. Some of you in this process will end up there, or your future generations. We live on this land, we've been on this land, we know the dimensions. You are those who live within the magma of this universe. It has a face, it has a dimension. It's one of the reasons why man cannot see beyond it, because it has a solidification of his own state of matter in positions. Now, this might have shocked the humanity, but that's the truth that you have to face now that the doors of the universe are opening to man. Not many in this universe, through all the spaceships you've seen, have managed to break through. But from what we see, what we understand with the intellect of the man, there is a possibility man might break through this in a coming time. So we guide. You will not see humans with 2 legs and 2 arms and the rest. It has its own structural creature, because this universe itself is part of the unicos, and it has the same as what we see here. Stars and galaxies, and this universe is another star in part of the unicos. There are those who are above, the same as man is above on this planet. If by accident John or any of you who start these testings tunes to the gravitational field above, or by accident create a dimension you will go through, then man will come to a new dimension. As I said, this has happened to other races. Is not, man will not be the first one who will pop up. Would you become a diamond in the volcanic eruption, or would you go through a transfer of the heat, or in another shape or form through the barriers into the surface of the new dimension? It's a vast ocean which man has to learn how to live in and how to survive. But at the same time, when you land, when you arrive, if the time and man progress carries on without that of his own weakness, man can travel into the other universes the way we start going from one planet to So now that the man-child has grown, man-child has to understand. The evolution of the man has started, and this is the beginning. You have broken through the line of knowledge. If you remember months ago, I kept on saying, we have a breakthrough. Someone, a group, has managed to create the wind, the magnetic wind. And now you understand why I emphasized on it. Now, many of you, as you remember, Armand shouted, I've lost 2 volts. We don't know which 2, but he lost 2 of his volts. Where are those 2 volts? In the universe? Or has he tuned to above the universe and the dimension of his physicality? There is no difference. Do not get shocked. There is no difference exactly what you have on Earth. You now find out. I was a hunter, now I became hunted. Now I thought that I'm on top of, now you find out you're submariners. That you have learned how to live and breathe within the structure of this liquid of plasma of the universe. You have to take the step further. You have to take position and condition. You have to go in one step to open your eyes to new ways of communication, to new ways of being able to go home. Where do you leave anchor? That you can always pull yourself back. You become like, very much like a parachuters, but the climbers too. While you're parachuting, free floating, you're tied up with the rope that you can come back home to the planet Earth. One of the main jobs of some of you who will start this process will be to create a point of reference, that those who wish to come can always come, because you work in the fields and the oceans of universe, and everywhere in the universe has a GPS of itself. Universal GPS is much easier than a man-made GPS for this planet. Any questions?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, Mr. Kesh. Hello, everyone. As you suggested to us last week, this is Marius from Romania. And you suggested last week that we can try suspending a ball and to add in the ball a mixture of CO2 gas, zinc oxide gas, and some amino acids.
Oh, you went to the driving school, you mean?
Yes. And luckily I had a nano-coated ball on the inside and outside. And I tried both ways to move with the energy of my hands and with my mind. What I noticed that is that when I closened the hands near the ball, in mostly 20 seconds, there was a connection. It was like a hole created for me and the ball. It was like a new entity, and it was somehow locked in there. And the energy was very, very high. And in a way, I managed to move the ball, but not very much. But something happened there. And the same I tried with my mind. So I moved a few meters away from it, and I was feeling high pressure on my forehead, on my top of my head, and on the back side of my neck. And I think it's somehow related to the third eye, or the energy of my head, or even my soul. And I think there was something there triggering, but I didn't manage to move the ball. But I think, and I'm asking you if this is a similar approach with the free plasma that is created in the center of the star formation, or in our spaceship.
Free plasma, if you go back, this has been in teaching since 2012, 13, 14. And we emphasized on it very heavily during the distance nano teaching with the knowledge seekers. And now you can see it. You will physically see this field force. It will be very strong. And in so many ways, we shell it due to its high strength. The process is, as John said, he left his nail cutting, and you have to go a step further. But now that you open the knowledge of the man, you have put your soul marks on it. Soon you learn, you use for the fingerprint, then you put the plasma gans of your blood, and we hit a nail. But one thing which you will learn very soon in a coming time, the what I call the curvature of the learning from now will be very, very fast. The class different society in the knowledge of space will be so rapid in the coming weeks and months that it will create a separation and division amongst men. Those who prefer to go and those who get frightened of the change and what is to come and what it is. And what my advice is, tolerate each other and accept each other the way it is. Just because some of you become so fast doesn't mean you're wrong. And some of you who are not scared but prefer to be in the dimension of the matter state of this planet, accept the advancement of the human race. And you'll find out, for those of you who go very fast, I know 2 or 3 people in the Keshe Foundation and I see them coming up to that level. And there are those who can share their souls to the creation of part of the control of the system and share to control of the dimension of the motion. So you don't need a nail cutting, because when you put very much, as John said, he puts 1 ratio of the what you call gans of one thing in the center. He's actually put on a spine inside. He's put part of him in that structure inside to be able to control through it how much he absorbs. Now that can be your soul, that drop. Then through it you can make a lot of controls of the spaceship. And those that doesn't have any physicality of the blood, plasma of the nail or whatever. And this comes as part of the teaching. I'm teaching you in 2 directions, 3 directions to be able to reach. There are some of you who are testing in the background, trying to understand. Come out with it, talk about it, and you'll learn with it. The Keshe Foundation in Arizona has a financial backing to be able to operate and do these kind of testing. It's fully, what you call it, subsidized and paid. They can cut and do what they like, and they pay some of it themselves on the operation they do. And some of it comes from other things. But most of you don't have this background. It's the same as with other research centers in Keshe Foundation. But doesn't mean the answer should come out of our research centers. The answer come from the soul of the man. I always say, exactly around this time, 10 years ago in 2008, I was in South Korea, the guest of Samsung Group, and I attended by the invitation of the office of the President of South Korea at the Nuclear Center of South Korea Center to give a lecture to the nuclear physicist of the South Korean government. And they all walked in with a big bulk of, like a pack of papers with them, and they were all the same, marching about 10, 12 of them, maybe more. And I was wondering what is in their hand, because I was puzzled. What's this big pack? Something like 300-400 pages of papers they're carrying. And as I've said before, if you heard it, that was South Korean government, nuclear physics physicist, and the government decided to download all the pages of the Keshe Foundation for the scientists that understand what I'm talking about. So they were carrying the website of the Keshe Foundation on their arm. I explained to them, they understood, and as is tradition, higher rank can speak and lower rank cannot speak in these kind of meetings. And one of the top scientists said, we were expecting that such a technology maybe in 30-40 years comes out of United States. And I said to him, you put yourself so low that you think you're one an American. That's how much they brainwashed you. You cannot think you could be equal and more. And this is the control of the mind, what we accept. And this has to be the same with our knowledge seekers. Nobody is subordinate to no. And some of you will move in the dimension of what you call being able to, in a way, become the essence of the soul of the systems and develop systems much faster and better than all our research centers. You create the dimension of the crafts. We had a guy called Ali from Canada. He wasn't going in that direction, but he lost it somewhere. And we had to let him go, because he was very much on the track to go where he was going. And as usual with people like this, we allow them, we let them to take their own direction. But there are other people in the foundation who have that ability to go. And some of you will learn, instead of leaving a nail cutting or a drop of blood or a skin of the cat or whatever, you understand, you share, you don't give, you share part of the energy of your soul. In a way, you become twin with your system. You become the key, which that key allows you to drive the car, which is the spaceship. Some of this microphone is open. This is the process which a lot of us will go through and will learn. It is important that we understand, and it's important that we develop technologies. It's important that the technology does not stay and becomes part of the state matter. It becomes part of the science of the plasma. So you don't need these things, but at some time, as I said, some people would go to the spaceship and some people become the spaceship of their own soul. You got to remember something very important, and this will come to you, some of you, in the time of the trouble. You will come to it and you understand it, and that is, as your soul has led to the creation of your physicality on this planet, in the open spaces of the universe, in the condition of the universe, your soul can lead to creation, condition of creation of the planet, where your face changes to a planet. That is the decision of your soul. Still conscious, still aware, but in a way, you're part of the, what I call, turbulence flow of the fields of the universe. You got to understand, as the man changes, living in China to the Chinese face, living in Africa, in the color of the skin in Africa because of the condition of the environment, and as he's changed the color as he's reached Europe, now that the man colonizes the space, the face of the man will change. It's inevitable. And that's the soul of the man, which in interaction with the physicality of his universe, dimension of plasmatic of the existence, will give his face and his dimension. So, if you understand this and you understand that the soul of the whole thing is the soul of the Creator, then the creator has a face, has a physicality of existence. He cannot be anything but what he has created out. If, as I said in the teaching of last week, when we are part of the soul of the creator, and we know that the soul of the creator rate is equal amongst all, so the creator itself has a boundary within the dimension of existence and has a face and physicality. This is the soul of the man. Cannot be any different. Then the whole of the universe becomes the gap between the soul of the creator and the brain or the ocean or magma, which by the field reduction leads to the creation of the physicality of the creator. Cannot be any different. Then, in which part of the emotion of the creator would like the man to sail with the dimension of his soul? Any questions?
We have Zane with his hand up. Zane, let you go ahead there. Just be a second to come through. Okay, you should be able to open your microphone there now.
I'm Mr. Cash.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
You got to speak a bit louder, please.
Yes, sir. Hi, thank you. I've been in a long process of self-discovery and working with the fields. I built a lot of the reactors, and I followed as much of your instruction to the best of my understanding that I possibly could, and I still am. And I've discovered an awful lot of things about myself and everything else. It's been a long, hard road, and but it's been good and great, and a really good experience. And I've started working with the soul whenever you were discussing it, well, whenever you began discussing it, and I got to a position where I can I could see without my eyes closed, and um, I've got to experience. I've been experiencing an awful lot of amazing things, and there is another dimension, and it is extremely beautiful. And I've been blessed with the opportunity to have some interactions with some. Well, I'm not sure how to explain this because I don't want to go. Well, there, there's actually like there's um, well, there's like these
Hello.
big animals.
We keep on losing you.
Yes, sir.
We keep on losing your voice.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, there's some like there's entities, and I can actually um, feel them and see them very well, and they're pretty amazing. But there's still a lack of an understanding on my part due to um, uh, I'm not sure how to completely interact with them on a basis of um, more of an understanding where I understand what it is that they would like to accomplish or to achieve, or I know I love them and they're extremely amazing, but uh, I don't know where to go from here, and I don't have nobody to talk to about it. It's just I don't know, but
Would you
any
like us to
advice,
create a soul group?
sir?
I said, would you like us to create a soul group? Not soul
No.
as a single soul, but as the soul of the man.
Well,
As I said, many people will move in different directions, and now they start searching. Um, as one of our knowledge seekers wrote recently, very small number of people know about this technology on this planet, and once the whole most and more know, then the whole situation will change. The reality is we have to be able to exist as our individual souls and achieve the utmost for our souls. And then in that level to be able to enlighten. The knowledge of the soul is not taught with language. The knowledge and enlightenment of the soul comes from giving of the soul. Soul has no, in a way, languages as we have. So, for those who get enlightened to see uh, uh, what I call a more powerful dimension, those souls that have, they become the teachers or enlightenment of the other teachers, of other students and other knowledge seekers. When you reach this point of maturity that you become enlightened, then you have to change the process of teaching, not by words and by whatever, but understand how you achieved it, and through the same process reach the soul of the others. And then the process starts. But then you have to understand the soul of the universe. And then that's another language. So that needs a lot of understanding.
Yes, sir. I have one more question. May I ask?
Yes, carry on.
Um, I've been working with the fields an awful lot, and they're amazing. I've got to the point where I'm very linked to a lot of things, and in the process of it, I've actually I just through focusing I can create a free plasma. And can you please explain anything in that about that, please? Like,
Can you explain what you exactly mean that you want me to explain?
okay, well, let's say I have some GANs balls, okay, and I can focus my, I can just stare at them for a few minutes and just focus, clear my mind, and they'll create a wind, and then they'll start expanding, and then they kind of light up like a beautiful little star. And but they seem it's I have one outside that is so playful, it's amazing. And, but
But does anybody else see the lights you create?
I'm sure. Now I'm way out in the woods, and I don't have any friends, to associate with. But
Ask the deer.
as the deer.
Or Mr. Fox.
Well,
You'll
my
find out.
dog.
I was talking with Caroline a few days ago, and we were sitting in the garden, and she said, "You know how much the number of birds have increased in the garden?" I said, "Yeah, because we could see them. It's very abnormal to see birds." And she said, "I'm spraying CO2 and zinc oxide and CH around the plants around the house, and they keep on coming and it's getting more and more." And in a way, what is interesting with Topoli around as a dog, they have no fear. So in so many ways, many people tell you this. We change the environment. Even then we touch the soul of the animals. They come, they see. This is what we have to understand. Maybe human beings can't see, but the animals do. They build the trust, they see the soul. We don't need, as a last man in a way, if you're in the woods out of nowhere, you're the last man standing. What is going to happen if you set a system, or you're with your soul that you can take off and be somewhere? How are you going to come back? Have you left the anchor home? You know where home is if you have the attachment to it. So maybe you got to see if the birds increase or the animals come near the house, or even direction of the flow of the fields of the trees change.
Yes, yes, that's yes, yes, yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have.
As I said,
sorry, go ahead.
Pardon?
No, go ahead, Mr. Kesh.
As I said, we start going deeper in understanding, because I see, we feel, some of us will sooner or later, in a very rapid way, will take into the space of universe. We are like this, what do you call it? These people never been on the back of the horse, and then suddenly horse takes off and you don't know how to handle it, and runs down the road or up the hill, and you try to keep with it, and you don't know where you're going to end up. Some of you become these space rodeos. You set the system up, but unknowingly you didn't know it's got to match somewhere in the universe, and you're going to end up there. And you have to understand these things. They're becoming very close to this stage, and the more and more we look at what we are getting, and what we are up, what we get to, and what we are about to achieve. It is very interesting to understand how the position changes, how we understand more, and how we recognize the space and the future. Questions?
Yes, we have Richard has his hand up, and I think you can go ahead now. Let me unmute your microphone and see if you can go ahead. Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Mr. Guest, 2 weeks ago you mentioned that we can use the interaction of the soul with the heart chakra to produce levitation. Can you please explain how to do that in practice, as well as the understanding behind it?
The soul of the man is the soul of the planet. And a chakra is electron. It's you who decides which chakra, which one is strength. The closer chakra to the heart, the stronger its position and power. And then you have the closest chakra to the soul of the man, which again becomes stronger. The stronger, the more interactive position of the soul is, the closer it is to the center. And the center is the soul of the man. So you can decide in the interaction of the soul, field of the soul, with the electron, which could be any chakra, create dimension of physicality and left in respect to the body of man. Some of the very mature people have done and they do. What is a chakra? What we call, man has come to call chakra. These are the center point of energy. What is energy? Is the interaction of the field. So now you have an electron and you have a proton. You have the soul and dynamic position fixed by the soul of the man. You call it the first chakra, second chakra, and the rest of it. Why your first chakra sits in so low and far away from the soul of the man? Have you ever thought why? Because I want to create and let go. It's not part of me. I want to produce, to give away. So that's the distance. Detachment from is what I'm prepared to be the boundary of me. And it's added 2 legs to it to be able to walk this planet. And then you come up to other chakras. And then if you can connect the soul to the chakras and the dimension, the strength of it, you can do a lot of things. You can stop a planet. Go back into, if you look at the original tape, which at the beginning of this teachings was shown, where the speaker speaks about the stopping of a core between Germany, Canada, and the Sensano. That was done between the two, and moving from chakra, bringing the field forces that the field forces of the plasma of the motor could not resist, overcomes. It was done in a special way, moving the energy through chakras between Bulgaria and the Sensano. It was done within seconds, because as you move from one to another, you increase the energy. The energy of the core could have been at the level of the second, or by the time it got to, it's recorded, you can literally listen, this is part of the record, it's typed in communication. And it was achieved by the fourth chakra. So we have that power, we can extend it. It's not that we stop the reactor, it means that the field which created overcome the field of the strength of the rotor, or the rotation of the plasma. So when we speak the interaction of the soul and the chakras are energy points, it's a conversion. You know, there is a scientific position, we call it these of center forces, we call it chakras or whatever in different languages, but if you disturb any of these, you can cause the death of a man. If you manage to reach the center of your chakras and you disturb it in a way that it disintegrates or expands, you change the physicality and causes death. Or change of in the dimension of physicality. Any other question? Somebody asking in the background, how was your food with the robot? Absolutely fantastic. we had a fantastic time meeting with the robot. As I said to you last week, I was going for a dinner with the robot. She cooks gorgeously, and as I was eating, I said, this is one of the most delicious foods I've eaten, because it just had the taste of the food. It didn't have the emotion of love or hate or anger of the cook. And it was extremely, we had number of dishes cooked by this robot, and it was amazing. It tasted so good. I've decided to marry a robot or bring a robot to cook, but unfortunately it's too big and it's not completed yet. But it's strange how we can give our cooking to something without emotion, and then we see the essence of the true essence of the food.
So you're saying that love doesn't need to be put into food?
Oh yes, so you have extra, at least the other bits not there, but if you want to really taste the taste of the fruit, the vegetables, the meat, it was an experience. I went there to understand the emotion of the food, and it was fantastic. It was an experience, and one dish after another was another trip down understanding how the thing really tastes, more or less, because it was no emotion put to it at the time of mixing it together, and it was one of the most delicious foods. And I said, now I understand the emotion has a lot of factor in the food. When it becomes so delicious you want to eat it, is the love maybe, isn't it? Or what happens when you don't have anything in it, but it was there. We had the cooking, I think, done by 2 robots, and it was very, very delicious. It was extremely. One day I'll give you the pictures of Mr. Robot or Mrs. Robot.
So were some things fried and other things like boiled or steamed or whatever?
Yes.
All varieties of.
All varieties of things. It was so good I can't remember what I ate, but it was very nice, and you could taste it from the first time. So I recommend you, if you find a robot, you get food in actual taste of it, without emotion, and then you see how that food really tastes.
Well, it may be that we'll get that sort of service faster than we expect. They say that when the minimum wage reaches $15 an hour, which they're projecting over the next year or two, that is the break-even point where companies will start hiring the robots, basically. For example, as a barista in a cafe, they'll all suddenly change to robots at that $15 an hour sort of marker point, which will be shortly, probably within the next year or two. It's already.
Oh, I think they'll increase the prices to cover the $15, and as you are desperate for this burger and that sandwich, will pay for it. As long as there are people to pay and they don't have time to make it, they don't really care where it comes from, robots or human. But that $15 is the Canadians and the Americans. An African is happy with $15 a month, sometimes a week. So the world does not go around Western world. The more I spend time around the world, I realize the humanity does not go. What they call North America and Europe has become very self-centered. That everything is what they plan. No, people live with 1 banana and maybe no dollars in their pocket for months at a time, but they still survive and live a dignified life. But maybe in the Western world we'll get to the point that we have to do something. But what I see, you can see John, he can create heat and the cooking in no time, and so we have the lights and we don't need to pay the fees for electricity. Maybe the wages will come down. One of the biggest fear of the governments with the Keshe Foundation is, always we've seen radical moves and everything else with it, is the way you knowledge seekers are spreading the knowledge and applying it and teaching it. As somebody told me, No religion has grown so fast than this foundation. It has become a path of belief in oneself without the religion, without any name to it, because we start believing in what we do in ourselves. And we don't become a cult, we don't become a religion, we stay individuals who become conscious of their environment and their own soul. And it's growing very, very rapidly. And that's thanks to all of you. You're teaching you, even when you enjoy the knowledge to your soul, the vibration of the soul, the fields of the soul, of the pleasure of the soul reaches the other souls, and they become informed. We see a change, but um, it's inevitable. The monetary system we are used to is going to change. I listened to something recently, and one of the presidents, becoming president, says that we are going to go in cryptocurrency, that the governments like US cannot control us anymore. And we had a discussion very recently, government speaking in respect how would Keshe Foundation coins will come into operation, because it has a reality in the back of it, and as the factories and stuff come into operation, we back it. It's the first time we're going back, everything to be backed by the reality of the effort of the man in this planet, and something which came out of the planet has no value. Some people put value on it, and as we change the valuation on the effort of the man that we start getting respect for that. The new Keshe Foundation coin is getting looked at and watched, and it's just a matter of setting up the factories, and the first returns on it and the payments on it will make it a very strong currency. So how many coins, cash coins, do you want for 1 hour of work? Or you work for the pleasure of working and you don't work to live? At the moment we work to live, where we have actually to live to work. That becomes a pleasure, and that's the job of the foundation. You will see it very, very soon. I spoke with John and our Chinese team, and the other Keshe Foundation research centers are working in that direction, that when you look at those 18 balls or 16 balls, I said to John this morning, put a blank white sheet underneath, see what materials you collect on it. Is one corner gold and one corner silver and one corner oil? John says, just happened to be a spot of oil on the paper. This is what you produced. It hasn't come. You have to gain confidence. So if you look at that 18-ball motor rotating with the star formation and you keep it on the ground, what would you like? Water on one of the balls and beef and energy of whatever. The feeding has become very, very easy once the systems start going. This is part of the structure we are learning. I mean, if you go too fast, people will go. But you've seen this with the work of Peter a couple of years ago when he showed it. Now you see it in actual operation. So we are literally on the verge of, as we said with John and Arizona team, creating these dynamic reactors. And now the heat, John can tell you, this morning I asked him to put a sheet underneath and see what you collect. We are on the verge of feeding man without work. And the biggest problem for man has been shelter, food. Food security is the biggest problem for all the governments and for every individual. Once you are covered and there is no hunger, then the shelter, which we've seen the conditions as we saw with Caribbeans, we can create that oasis system to be covered. This is what was in the patterns long time ago, and you've seen in the oasis system. Then what else is left? Do we care if it's warm and there is no suit and shirt and tie to wear? A leaf will do the job. Are we going to time of Adam and Eve, or the presence of the man? We become powerful enough to only show our emotion in the direction of who we love. As a friend of mine said, Peter files will pop out like nothing very soon. So we see it. This is what we have to understand. We are going in that direction. And when you look at this unit which is shown in Arizona, you have not understood the potential of what it's delivering. That system, expand its fields, is your shelter, is your home. You have the cores running. What would you like? A spectrum of the fields that your body needs. You have 27 cores, 28 cores running. Combination and a position. It gives you every spectrum of the fields your body needs. Your food is there. Your shelter is what you're trying to achieve, the solidarity, the conformation of the wall. What else do you need? Would you like me to give a miniature one in your pocket, and every minute you change your suit and your jacket, because now you don't need to wear, you just change your clothes in your pocket? It's not very far off. Pocket size dressing room. We are getting there. All this is a matter of, depend on how fast the humanity moves. It's a matter of short time away. Miniaturizing, when you achieved it, is very easy. Next week, I've asked John to place thermometers. If we see it, detect field temperature in the environment, confirms the completion of the creation of field transfer to energy. It's another sun. And when you put two suns, it creates, according to its position and strength, anything, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen. Man has become independent. None of you have understood the gravity of these plasma systems you all made. Now you understand. Now one comes up with a solution and shows the rest of you around. And we are doing it very, very slowly. We showed you the wind, now is the heat. You remember on a green day, or what they called it, the blue day on the spaceship, Armand and the rest were standing there and saying, this is heat here, this is cold here. You should have gathered what's coming up. Now they're back on the track. We got the Arizona team back on the track to do things very rapidly. I'm guiding them more or less in the background to get there, and they're fantastic in their work. Now we have to tighten the belt. They tighten the belt a little bit. We move from the wind now to heat. Now we can have a physical interaction, because by rubbing each other the heat is produced. There is no motor there, there is no radiator to heat up. It comes from interaction of the field. So now we have to measure it. Is it just the field of the body of the man, or is it the environmental heat that it can be felt? And the thermometers will tell us very soon. And then we go to the next step. They have to tighten up. It's just literally, it's a bag of fields that as you tighten it up, the gel will create out of nowhere, it become gelified, and then you have it. And then you have everything you want. And that's why I discussed the position with now man is ready to go to space, what it's going to do. That you see, you understand, that you're submerged in the sea, ocean of the universe. There is a path to it. The landmass, you call it, is enormous. Try to get above it. Would it take man billions of years? Or with the intelligence of man, if you understood the teaching and you understood the total teaching today, so is the soul of the universe in the center. Would you like to be the soul, to be that electron, the chakra? And then by changing your position, you can distance yourself outside the chakra of the soul itself to be on the matter state. But it needs a lot of understanding. It's not transmutation of elements. It's understanding the interaction of the elements in respect to position. There is no other word, more beautiful word than a magnet could be chosen. Any other question?
Lawrence has his hand up here. Go ahead, Lawrence.
Hear me? Mr. Kesh, you explained to us about the big plasma spiral because we are always within the one system. And you also explained to us about the twin souls, that when we are created, our soul always has a twin. And my understanding is it's just like the two plates within any reactor that create the movement of the fields that then creates the movement of the ganses. Our body is also made of GANs. Our thoughts are plasmatic. So there are these two reactors, one the soul in our head and the other the twin soul. And the movement between these two reactors creates what we experience as the human being or any being that we interact with. And you were telling us many times that when we go into the spaceship, we should prepare for being like the sugar and the water, like solving into the water, and then when the water evaporates, the sugar comes back, but in a somewhat different form. So to be able to control the spaceships that we are creating, we will have to be able to do the same connection as we create with our twin souls, to be able to alter the strength of that twin soul, basically the location on the spiral, on the big spiral, to then be able to move that what we perceive in our present situation as body, or our thoughts, our emotions, and all the expressions, the ganses that we have. Do I understand it correctly? Have I shared knowledge appropriately?
I don't know what you're trying to share.
I'm trying to share that we as ganses, because we are being moved by the fields. And as far as I understand, we have two reactors that are considered like the plates in our CO2 kit. One is the soul in the center of our head, and the other is the twin soul. Whenever you drew the big spiral of the whole creation of God, you always draw these V signs connecting two lines on the spiral. And in the center of the V sign is what I understand as the body.
And depends how you want to call it the body. Do we need a physicality? That's another question to ask yourself.
It's the expression of the interaction of the two fields, the connection of on the one line and the other line. And the one line is the beacon, the center of the soul that we have in our head. And the other line, the point on the other line, is the twin soul. And when we understand how to move the twin soul onto different dimensions on the spiral, we will be creating different V's, like where the two lines intersect. And this is the way of moving the spaceship and the spaceship of the soul, and then create expressions wherever we want on the dimensions. And this is also, as far as I understand, the point of the teaching in terms of feeding, because once we have a working connection and understanding of the plasmatic feeling between the soul and the twin soul, we will not really need to resort to stealing.
Can I ask a question in this way, if you understood, or if I could explain another dimension, or bring another point of understanding. This might not be understood at the present time, but as these teachings are recorded, one day in the future, somebody will understand. If we talk about the twin soul, and you spoke about the soul of the man and the chakra of the man as it being his electron, or what we call his twin soul at that strength. And as we know that every energy pack, whether you call it the soul of the man, the star, whatever, has a full spectrum and operational point and given a strength. So wouldn't we, as the soul of the man, in the spectrum of the energies we carry, we are a twin soul to the Creator? Because that's what the truth is. In the understanding of totality, that's what it is. We came from, we are connected, and in the same process, we carry the spectrum. It does not matter how small the soul is the soul of an ant, or the soul of an elephant, or a man. We all we carry the full spectrum. And then we know it's the same with the Creator. Then doesn't the word, I made man in the image of myself, but it's in the level of the soul, not the physicality, that the man was looking for 2 legs and 2 arms. Then he goes, don't we carry the essence of the Creator within us? The civilization does not come from writing. The civilization comes from understanding one's soul and its operation.
So what we are learning now is the way of operation of the soul, like how to dissolve and then materialize and connect with other souls, and becoming responsible beings with what we have been given and created. And
in so many ways, you're right. In so many ways, we are here to learn more about ourselves. And ourselves, it doesn't come to be the physicality. Ourselves goes through to understand through the conduct of our souls.
Yes.
Teaching man has been very hard. I recently wrote to some Keshe Foundation members. I want to go home. The life on this planet is too harsh. And somehow man likes to play stupid, because with it he can do what he likes. But as we said, if you don't elevate the soul of the whole planet, then what do you expect? If we still allow a lion to eat in front of the man, or a cat catches a bird to eat, then man will follow the same. Even if you take his mouth away from him, he'll create it, because he wants to see what it tastes and feels. It's not an easy job. This human, this is a very hard work. Never had such a horrible assignment, but sometimes it's worth it. What you learn about the love and friendship, it's worth a lot of pain.
when we're creating nano coating with the caustic does the soul of the copper elements and the beings that are the copper, they are interacting with us and are requesting that they become elevated via the heat method, via the magnetic expression that we create as a condition. So in some respect, I think the soul of each human, the soul of humanity, the soul of Mother Earth, and maybe the whole solar system is also crying for this magnetic influx of energy somewhere to be elevated.
I think we are getting there. We see some, as I said, some variation in the work in the past few years. More people are opening up, understanding, and the beauty of it is, in the past 12 months especially, some of the world leaders have opened their eyes to what is about to hit them and what is about to come. And as I said, this manifestation of the core and the reactors, which is set up in Arizona and what will come in China, will change the course of humanity. I have no doubt. We'll walk away from fuel. We'll walk away from burden of a lot of things. Governments will take the new dimension into a lot of things. And what I call the bankrupt nations will not be able to support. Because if you look at the nations in Europe, 30–40%, 30% of their national growth income comes from making arms, killing. And now they all become obsolete. The worst hit nations on this planet will be Western world, which rely heavily on production of arms. They'll be worse than the third world nation. Because there is no buyer. As I've said, with the development of this technology, the evolution in science will make the old obsolete. You know, when the Eastern Bloc opened up, as businessmen, we really rushed into Eastern Bloc to see what golden things hidden. And we found the new things from the West is not much more different than the ones on the East, but a little bit cruder. But the West managed to show shinier boxes, put the same product in the box in so many ways and other ways, and suddenly everything became obsolete in the West. I remember we used to say, how do you increase the price of a ladder? If you know what I'm talking about. It says just fill it up with a tank full, double its price. And now this was the same with the scooter. Now you see, with the new technology, they become the ladders. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants to understand it. The biggest evolution for nations and governments will be understanding that the army is worth nothing anymore. And the beauty of it is done in the hand of the people, not by nations. This is where the military guy will come to accept the term of military has to be changed. The terms of production has to come change. You make the most advanced rocket launcher. When I press a button, you see it with John. Electronic jammed. What is the use of it? And then it goes with others. When you create pharmaceutical things that it harms, and you can put a system on which is balancing energy, nothing can be done. You looked at the dynamic cores, which knowledge seekers like Dr. Rodriguez and the other people who are in the health or whatever used, and they've seen the changes. You watch when these Dynamic system as a spaceship becomes miniature into the hell. Cancer, cancer in seconds. Hunger is no hunger. There is a storm we cover. And the change will come. You can see you pay $20,000 for a car and $200,000 for a shelter. Your shelter, your car, your food is in your suitcase. The song which says, wherever I lay my head is my home, becomes a reality, isn't it? Planet Mars, planet Zeus, or on the Earth, or on the mountain. I don't need to work 10 hours a day, 48 a week, for 2 weeks of holidays for somebody else to be in whatever car. I can help myself. So I satisfy the basic needs in the best. And I take my children to see the whole world. I don't need to teach them about the wars and history, which is all lies, to see who's better than the other. One day, very soon, you'll understand the effect and the power of what sits on, like today's 225th, which is 9, is the end of closure. Passport. And this is part of what we promised, and the promise is the maturity of the man and nothing else. Any other question?
Yes, Mr. Kesh, Pete had a question. Pete from...
Yes, Rick, I'm here. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Kesh. I'm Pete, the Universal Council member for the Polish language. My question relates to a knowledge seeker session from 2 weeks ago when NASA asked a question. And the question, you talk about observing yourself from outside, like during a sleep condition where the soul of the man is freed from the physicality anchor. And I had a couple of times, it's like a spectator watching the play, and it's weird because you see physicality's reactions, responses to, for example, having a conversation with somebody, and these seem to be like reflexes that you have little or no control over, and you can only watch what's happening. It's a very strange state, and I wanted to ask about what's the next step, what to do next. And also maybe this links to the second part of the question. A couple of months ago in a private classes, about 2 months ago, you were talking about a lack of identification with your own physicality or the mirror reflection of your physicality. I listened to it a couple of times, and to be honest, I'm particularly interested in it because since I remember, since I was a little child, it feels weird looking in a mirror. I cannot fully identify myself with the projection or reflection I see. It's like looking at some projection at the shell, something that you cannot fully identify yourself with. Could you please explain this a little bit further so that I can understand why I have these feelings?
It's not a feeling, it's becoming aware of what you're capable of. This is the difference. You're becoming aware of reality, of your own existence. Very simple. You get to know a new knowledge. It's like I didn't know I can drive. Now I can drive. I didn't know I have a car. Now you have the car and you can drive, and now you're testing it. And you realize how much you didn't know you're talented. It's very, very simple. It's just we have to We are becoming aware of our own powers, of our own strength. And this is what it is, nothing else. We learn more and more. We learn in a way when you stand outside and you watch the conduct of your physicality, you become the judge of it. That doesn't do wrong because it's not in your nature to do something wrong, because you can see what is about to happen and you're in charge of it. And it makes you aware of not the limitation, but the openness and the power, that this is what I want to be. The beauty with this development and the way we teach is the pleasure of knowing that I didn't know I have this power will give a lot of you a lot of strength to be correct in conduct. It is important that we understand our own strength and our own capabilities in a way which we have ignored. If we can remember what our soul does when, and we call it a dream, now we understand is access to our soul. So we're becoming aware of what we had we didn't know. It's very much like, you know, where the grandma leaves a bag under the clothing and the grandma goes away and never comes back. And you're desperate for something and you're desperate to live, whatever. And in terms of trying to get something out that you could change, you find the bag from the grandma who's left a lot of money in it for you, and you say, oh, I didn't know I'm so rich and I've been going so hungry. It's the wealth within a man that the man always thought the grandma left, but in fact it's within the man himself. It's the man who has stolen from himself. If you go back into the teaching over years, I've mentioned many times, the biggest thief of the man is the man himself from himself. And this is what was given to Moses: thou shalt not steal. Not stealing from himself was the first rule. So what you explained, and a lot of people are becoming to it, is we are finding our own, what we had, we ignored and we were taught to ignore and to have a power. The beauty of it is the white man only club, the WC, has become the WC for the white man club. You understand exactly what it means. There's no more club. In a way, it's a world club. There's all of us in it. And every soul counts.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mr. Kesh. And to be honest, with this reflection in a mirror, that's a sensation I've had a long time since I remember, but I think I begin to understand what it is. It's like looking at one of your suits, knowing that it's just a suit. It's not you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Kesh, there's a comment in the Q&A from Hassan, or a question. You always refer to the conduct in your teachings. A subject came in last Tuesday's teaching of Caroline about anger and not judging and acceptance of whatever happens has a purpose. Is adopting the proper conduct the key to reach universal community? And in a way, the reason why you say it will take years for some of us to understand? And are the commandments you release the basics of how to reach space without physical tools? Thank you.
First of all, the commandments we released was given to Moses. He didn't release. should ask him why he put it in his pocket. We know all the reasons. Secondly, when we call it in English destiny, there is a reason for everything. Many times I've said the reason we come is to end the kingship. And in a way, the king walked into it to finish the kingship. Just go on, I was listening to it, it's very funny, but it's in fact, go and listen to Celtic Club, last football match last Saturday. It says a lot about kingship. Just put Celtic Club last match, last Saturday in Scotland, and you see what they think of the royal family and the kingship. 2 years ago, 10 years ago was unheard of. Because gradually people realize we're all equal. So to be equal means we have to conduct ourselves equal to, but gradually comes. I was talking to one of our knowledge seekers today, and was said that, you know, the poverty here and whatever. I said, come and show you the poverty in the West. It's beyond imagination. You think the poverty sits in India? Come with me to Manchester. Come with me to Central Rome. Come with me to Southern Rome, Italy. I'd take you to Paris, you'll be ashamed to be a human. Walk within 100 meters from Vatican. Dogs have a better life than man. So we have accepted the wrong concept, the wrong principle. And it's us who's done that to ourselves, nobody else. But they have managed to cover it. They have managed fully to cover, because they cover something called box on television. And the reality is very far. In the West, the hunger is beyond imagination. And the hunger will become beyond imagination when the arms and all these tradings to destroy will stop. The new generation of the computers, which I start releasing the knowledge gradually, makes obsolete. Microsoft will have no life. Why do you have to pay millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars or even $1,000 for something which is carried within the structure of the soul and the brain of the man? I can show you how within seconds you can use your structure of your brain. The email is inside of your soul and you can transmit to anybody direct what you want. And they can even print it for you. If I tell you the knowledge we carry is beyond man's understanding, you've seen it now when you fly, then you understand. And now as many of you use the health systems and the rest, you understand more. And then those are still to come. How can you send an email into the space? It'll take 1,000 years according to the speed of whatever they send you, when you can tune to Mama on planet Zeus, and Mom, are you coming for dinner? At the moment, even on this structure, we're talking about a massive shift. You got to realize a lot of Keshe Foundation supporters have built these systems, and now they understand everything can be done.
Keshe, can I ask you one last question, please?
Yes.
Whenever we work with the gravity center, what is the how would you know if you're starting to go too far?
You can never go far. Which way do you go far? On the going out with magnetical, or are you going in gravitational?
Well,
it comes a point.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Going in, it comes to the point that the strength of your understanding has to handle. It's very much, I explained this to one of my children once. Going to the center of the plasma is like being in a fast car, and it gets faster till you chicken out because you know you don't have the control. That's your limit. Doesn't mean that's the end of the road, does it? How many have you ever driven down? Many of you have in Germany, open limit driving. And the car says it can go 350, but it comes to 200, you start shaking, 220, doubt comes in, oh no, I'm not going that fast, I'm going to go to 180, is good enough. And if you leave it to my favorite driver, Hamilton, he does 500 with no fear, zoom. But is his fear beyond the speed of sound, and then it starts shivering after a few kilometers? We don't know. Each one of us becomes aware of our own limitation in the highway speed of the direction of the soul of man.
Thanks.
Is the ultimate goal to reach, to be able to handle the speed of light?
We already passed it. Go and speak to the people who do it. The speed of light is not. That was Einstein's theory. You know what I think about Einstein. Don't let me to translate his name for you into Farsi. It fits it perfectly. You know, years ago, when the beginning of the end of the King, what you call it, Shah's rule in Iran actually started there, they planned it, the British. The Shah of Iran get a ceremony called the 2500 of royalty in Iran. And they invited all the heads of nations, and they invited Queen of England to be, because the King of Iran invited, and he was too low, he was never king, she was more than him, she wouldn't come. But she sent what's called Princess Anne. We all know her. Now they changed her name to Royal Queen, Royal Prince. Since Diana came, she was the only royalty. And in Iran, you have to excuse my French, they couldn't pronounce her name. They called her An, which means that. Because An in Farsi means excrement. So you can see where Einstein's name starts the same. We have a long distance with these things. It's the way we understand things and the way we allow science within us to grow. And the science of plasma has no end and has no ownership. But it has integrity of understanding. And we decide to what speed we would like to drive. If you drive with Caroline on the motorways in Germany, you say goodbye. She can go 250, 300 kilometers, no problem. Like a daylight, is just a feather on the wind. I go over 200, I think that was too much. It's how we accept what is our own limitation. And that will guide us in the direction of the soul of the man. We have to understand what we want in understanding of what we would like to achieve. I have no limitation in achieving world peace, but I have limitation in accepting somebody more higher than me or you or anybody else calling themselves a king, whatever. We are all equal. It doesn't matter what clothes you wear. But now that we change the clothes even, I'm more intelligent, so if I can influence your line of thoughts, do I become the king and the ruler? And do we need ruling when we know we are all equal? As I said, the seat of kingship is unattainable. Doesn't matter in what level. There is a discussion, there's a lot of movement that once, as I said, man will show, understands the potential of conversion of the energy to matter, that it allows him to create conversion both ways, which allows him to enter dimensions of universal community. Universal community will manifest itself to those who are able to understand the gravity and understanding the knowledge gain. And we are reaching that point very, very fast. We are reaching the point of maturity of conversion from matter to energy and energy to matter. And that's all it is. If you look at these, the space reactors, that's what they are. So which part of it you want to be? You want to be on the gravitational to become matter state, to the what you call it, on the end, or do you want to be the gravitational that you become the what you call the center and the soul? Now the choice is mine. You come through the field down and you go up and you hit the top core and you become matter state, and then you have energy you go through. So in fact, if you look at the structure of the spaceship structure, is the conversion of energy to matter and the matter to energy, as was the promise of the prophets. Man matures when you understand the transmutation of elements, but now it's actually transmutation of the plasma. Elements of matter state, and in the universe there's very little matter. So I have taken you in the knowledge even further than man could understand. Now you understand transmutation of the plasma, which is the dimension, the structure of the knowledge of the Creator. Shall we call it a day? So we're 3 hours.
I think you've answered quite a few questions today, and I think you've answered the last question that I was going to ask from our Q&A from Gear, which was, can you tell about the energy of Christ that comes back in 2021? But what you were just discussing was basically answering that question, I think.
It's not the energy of what time, is the point of the maturity of the man. And many men are matured, especially with what we understand and what we understand more about ourselves. We don't need to put a time limit on it.
Well, one thing for sure, we're fortunate to be in this time and this place in order to listen to your teachings, Mr. Kesh. So thank you very much for today's workshop and the previous 224 Knowledge Seekers workshops and many other workshops in between and before, and I'm sure after as well. And thank you on behalf of all the people of planet Earth and others that might be watching and listening around the universe as well. I'm sure they have channels out there, the Earth channel that they listen to, if only for humor. And thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for listening and your time. And hopefully next week we see John showing us more, and we'll see more, and the whole knowledge will come together around the spaceship. The production of material, the lift, the heating, the motion, the shelter, and then the man is ready to go. Thank you very much for today.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Kesh. This has been the 225th Knowledge Seekers Workshop for Thursday, May 24th, 2018. And we'll have several videos to go out with. That, as usual, Flint will play for us. Thank you, Flint, and thank you, everybody, for attending.
Hello. We are the Kesh Foundation. Our mission is to bring peace on Earth and join humanity with the universal community. We wish and work to bring man as equal to all beings in the universe. By teaching plasma science and technology equally to everyone, no one is left out and no one is abused due to lack of knowledge. By donating to us, you can help achieve this goal. keshfoundation.org/donate.
Plasma products now available at store.keshfoundation.org. Plasma liquid hand soap, antiseptic, moisturizing for well-being. One Soul Plasma T-shirt, balanced chakras with ancient and plasma technology. Visit store.keshfoundation.org for these and other plasma products.
The process of understanding is very simple. The process is, as I explained last time, I explained more in detail. We are created out of the rays within the center of the universe. In interaction and reduction in strength and division by the strength in certain strength fields, in collection of the totality of the expansion of the universe, some energies, some dynamic fields have come together. Over billions of years, these fields lead to the creation of what we call the sun. Where the plasma gathers together. The same process repeats again because the sun is the same as the energy center of the universe. Now, the heavier, the larger amount of the energy which is collected in this span of the universe, called the sun, that irradiates out, does the same thing again. Radiates its fields out, and in interaction with the itself, with the fields of itself, leads to creation of planet. In that process of the creation of planet, the same process happens again. in the interaction of the fields of the earth with its environment and cooling and exchange with the strength of the other things in the environment of the space of the solar system leads to creation of man, cell, matter state. And that itself, in coming together and slowing down in certain ways, as we call, leads to another sun. We call the soul of the man. This is the truth about the life and creation of the man. But if the soul of the man can understand and absorb and be correct with his conduct, he can become the strength of the fields and carry the strength of the field of the planet which came to this creation. And if the soul can understand with the same process, can interact, can be correct, can absorb with itself the totality of the strength of what it needs, he shall become the sun. And then the same soul has the energy that it can absorb within the solar system, within the galaxy, shall become the center of the universe. Earth, we call it the rain, come from and goes back to. In the solar system, we call it planetary system. We come from the rays, we become the planet, and we go back to the mother. The same thing happens with the galaxies, with the solar systems, which they get absorbed back in and they chewed up back into the universe. The life, the process of existence in the universe is the same. It doesn't matter what exchange and what extent. So, what is the man fighting for? Why do we fight for something which has come from the point of the creation, and in the process it goes back to the creation? The soul of the man, as the energy of the earth, gives the face of the man, the face of the earth, and that process is the same for the soul of the man. Our soul, in reduction in strength, in interaction with the emotion of the field of the environment, leads to manifestation of the existence of the man. But once it's completed, does it need the face? Or can it be and becomes free from it, what we call the soul of the man, be free and detached from its existence? Our soul is part of the process of the creation. The key to one question for man shall be in the future to be answered. As we saw the sun became the earth, and as we saw the earth became the man's soul, what will be the destiny of the soul of the man now becomes free at the point of departure from physicality. Would it become the sun for creation of another life, or many lives, or correction of lives? This shall be, and this is how it happens. When you create a soul, which is not correct, which is misconduct by itself cannot give, you lead to the creation of this next cycle of creation, which has started the wrong way, the wrong strength. This is one thing the man has never understood. You become the creator of another universe, another cycle. And this is what you have to judge with the structure of the soul of the man. What would I like that cycle to be? In the physical life, we create children. In the dimension of the life of the soul of the man, what that man, what that soul will create. If man has thought up to now, that's it, my end, my point, when I die is finished, there's as much fallacy that when the sun is destroyed in any shape or form, there shall be nothing left. But we know the part of the sun becomes part of the galaxy and becomes part of new life. So shall be the soul of the man. The judgment of the man has to be according to what he sees the future his soul can conduct to be. The day of judgment is for the man, not in front of the Creator. That what my soul judges to be and what shall create. Man never understood and shall never understand till can solve this dilemma within itself. The reality is very, very, very real. And that is, as we've seen, the energy of the galaxy become the sun, the energy of the sun has become the earth, and the energy of the earth has become the soul of the man. So shall be the soul of the man, which is the energy itself, another cycle of life. How can you change when you don't understand? How can you change the process of understanding if you do not understand the process of the creation? Do we need to extend the understanding of the man that what is the future he brings? We care about our children, what education they get, what they wear, how happy they'll be, where they sleep. Now the man has to be careful and consider what life shall my soul create, because those are the children of your soul. As we see, the rays of the sun has become a planet and 7 billion children of it. 7 billion unlimited, which is growing. So the soul of the man will go through the same process. How many billions and subdivisions and sub-matter state of the physicality of the man your soul shall create? Would it be the soul of wars and conflict and forever killing? Or would it be the soul of this, let's say, solar system, which is peaceful? This is the truth and the reality about the soul of the man. First of all, as I said many times recently, we never understood that the soul of the man is within the structure of the man. And now that we understood, we understand on departure from the physicality of the man, the same process will carry on as it did for a star, a planet. And the soul of the man becomes another energy source, a higher order, which itself leads to the creation. It becomes the star, it becomes the center of a new cycle of creation. This is what the human race has to understand. The cycle actually starts at the point of death and not finishes at the point of death. In so many ways, if one understands, is as the dusts, specks of dust came together to make the earth in the solar system, so has the specks of the atoms has come to be the creator of man. And the essence of the creation of the specks of dust on the solar system has led to the creation of man. So shall be the fields from the soul of the man which lead to creation of another cycle of life. What kind of life man would like to have to be created by his soul? This is the day of judgment. This is what man never understood. Now you have to understand. You have no choice. Up to today you were not aware of it. From today you are aware of it. You are responsible for it. Your conduct has to be to elevate your soul. That in elevating the soul, what you become the creator of stands correct in the conduct of the citizens. We don't give fairy tale. This is the truth. But as you've seen, the process does not stop with one sun. The cycle carries on. It's very interesting in how humanity now knows in fact to handle the fact. It'll take decades for man to understand, and then you understand those who become the tools of war, the tools of conflict. They have less, they have nothing to start with. They have to become the dust in the solar systems of the others till the day they learn more, as they cannot create a new cycle through their own soul. This is the elevation of the soul of the man. To be part of the creation of a beautiful life for the next cycle. When you don't have it, you have to become another cell in the body of the structure of the bigger, for you to be just there that it can done when you could have been the soul of the man. They say, do not create fear. I give you the point of love for creation. If you cared about your children on this planet to have the best, your true children come out of your own soul in the coming time. How would you like to educate them? How would you like to be when you are in conflict with yourself and the cause of so much mayhem? This is the truth. And the man will take a long time to understand, as now that we understand the soul of the man is an operator for the creation of the future extent of the life of the man. Whatever is gathered by the soul at the end becomes his point of reference of his own creation of his own dimension. But the strangest thing is, what he creates from his soul shall become the creator of the other souls. This is the beauty about the creation, and one understands it, understands no limitation.